Hey y'all, it's Brad Allen, and I've helped countless agents write thousands of contracts and review them as part of my job as a broker in charge. And I have found little things that agents can do to ensure that they're getting the best contract and terms for their clients, and also not missing issues, and ultimately not costing any money. Guys, we know we're busy. We know we're running 5,000 miles an hour, and we get a contract and we just want to kind of look at it and say, good, here we go. What are the terms? Because we think we know the contract. So I'm going to give you some points today to help you have an easier process, to give you a couple of seconds of breathing room so you know that you're advising your clients the best way possible. So the first one to point out is you got to know this contract. I cannot tell you how many agents, sometimes other brokers in charge, that do not know the contract that they are using. They don't know all the terms. Like, they are surprised when I say, well, what about this? And like, it says that in there? Y'all, you need to know this contract. If you do not know this contract, whatever contract it is, your state one, your local one, your company one, I don't care what it is, but you've got to know it. You've got to know it to the point where you know the paragraph and what it says. You've got to know the contract. Like I tell my agents in training all the time, the contract has all the answers that your buyer or seller most likely can ask you about the deal. And you've got to know this so you can advise them appropriately. Can you move in early? Maybe. What's the contract say? Do you have to do inspections? Maybe. What's the contract say? Guys, you've got to know that. That is step one. And if you don't, you need to read it like 3 times a day until you know it forwards and backwards. I cannot stress to you enough how unprofessional it is that we are helping people buy their biggest investments and we don't even know the damn contract. It's sad, and we need to work on that. So now that I'm off my soapbox about the contract, one of the things you need to know is the contract the one that you actually know? So here in South Carolina, we have a couple of them floating around. We've got it down to a handful, but there are multiple contracts. Are you most familiar with that contract, or is that from a different market? Buyers could submit a contract on a napkin if they want to, right? We all remember that from real estate school. Doesn't mean we have to accept it. So if you do get a contract that you're not familiar with, you need to stop. Go to your broker, follow your office policy manual. I'm not trying to override anything that you've been taught, but go say, hey, this is not what I'm used to. And my opinion, if you're my agent, we go to our client and say, here's the offer we were submitted with. Here's the differences between the one we're used to and the one they've presented. Would you like me to counter back on our contract that we're used to because I represent you the best? Or are you okay countering back on their contract? And you have a discussion, you get in writing, and you move forward. But guys, you don't have to just accept the contract that was sent to you just because it's a contract. You do have that opinion. The other one I'm seeing catch people right now is make sure you have the most up-to-date version of the contracts. We rely so heavily on .loop and DocuSign and transaction desk and all this stuff, but make sure that you've got the most updated ones. We get contracts all the time that are 2 years ago version. And guys, we know with all the settlement stuff and all the laws that have changed, those aren't the right ones. So we've got to make sure that we're using the right ones. So take a look down that bottom right corner. It's usually where you see the date of the most recent one. Make sure you're doing your clients a favor and you're using the most recent one for their benefit. My second point is take a break. Sit down, read the contract. I get so many contracts in my own office. I get so many contracts that are ratified between buyer and seller, but it's missing information. It's missing an initial. It's missing, is somebody get a home warranty? Are they not? Are they going to do inspections or not? The checkbox isn't checked, but everybody signed off like it has been. So take a break. If you're a seller's agent and you get that contract, don't just look for where your client has to sign. Look for the buyers too. Because if you're in my office, you've got to go back and get that buyer to sign off on their part. So don't just skip over it. Don't just say, I'll get it later, because is it enforceable if both sides haven't signed it? Not really. I've gotten caught in loopholes like that where it's cost my clients deals. So make sure you're looking at every single option, check mark, and make sure it's filled out to its fullest potential. That's the biggest step you can take. Step 3 is going to be look for ambiguous language. Clear is kind. Are they really asking for certain things directly, or is it as needed, TBD? Like, that's my favorite, TBD. Guys, there can't be a to be determined. This is what determines it. We write it in the contract. It is determined. We can't determine it later because I can't agree to something I don't know about later and agree to do it when I don't know what it is. You follow? So what I need y'all to do is make sure that if it's not clear to you, it's not going to be clear to your client. And how are you going to advise your client on how to negotiate on their biggest investment if you're not clear on what the buyer actually wants? Take a breath. That's the number one thing, not even this video, the number one thing in your career. Take a minute, slow down, do your job, pay attention. That's all you've got to do. Step 4, look at the contingencies. Oftentimes in a buyer's market, buyers are trying to sell their house, buy a house, they're trying to rent backs, they're trying to do all these different contingencies. Make sure you fully understand them. Sometimes agents get in the habit of trying to be attorneys and write up their own language. Guys, we're not attorneys. I don't care what state you're in. Unless you're literally an attorney, you have a JD behind your name, you're not an attorney. So if somebody sends you something that was handwritten and it just doesn't make sense, don't just take that as a gospel, like, well, that's what the buyer wants. That's not how it works. Fortunately, some states you can't do that. Some states you can. So pay attention to the contingencies and make sure you understand that. And that kind of goes back to my previous point. Clear is kind. When are you expecting to move in? What did you mean by this? What is an escalation clause? Like, you've got to dig into these things to make sure you're absolutely certain of what the contingency is, so you can absolutely tell your client. So step 5 is look at the financial aspect, right? Make sure that the lender is somebody that you know. And if not, give them a call. Check in, say, hey, I'm checking in. I've got a buyer contract. I just want to see where they are in the process. They can't divulge any information that would obviously hurt their client, but they can't tell you general stuff. Like, do you have all their documents? Have they actually applied for the application? Have you checked their bank statements? Has their credit been pulled? You can pull those things. You can ask those things. That way, when you talk to your seller, you give them facts. It's a lot harder to go, hey, seller, I think you should take this offer. I don't know who the lender is. I don't know anything about them. Maybe they can buy your house. Guys, that's not what you want to do. And the other part is what type of loan. Like I said in one of my videos about appraisals, you can go back and watch that. If it's a VA loan, there's certain requirements to that. And guys, there's certain things the house has to be able to do. So it can't have flaking paint. And some of y'all got houses out there looking like you just got a 3rd-degree sunburn. You're flaking all over the place. That's not going to help you when it comes to the appraisal. So if you know these things ahead of time, you can advise your client like, hey, yes, there's a VA loan. We got some flaking paint. We talked about that. So we're going to have to knock that out before the appraisal. So little stuff like that's really going to help you with these red flags that can come up and bite you later. And the last thing I want to point out, number 6, is make sure you're not giving bad advice. You may think you know something, but do you really? And you have to ask that internally. It's like, you may need to pull your broker in. That's what I would recommend. Or you may need to get them to legal advice. We had one the other day. Hey, they want to buy a house for their kid. Can they get legal residence? I know the answer, but my answer was make sure we get them with the closing attorney and they can tell them directly, because that's out of my purview. Do not try and advise your clients on things that are not in your lane. That's number 6. So make sure you're being the professional you're supposed to be. You're the pretty face. You open up doors. You negotiate, but you're not an attorney. You're not an inspector. You're none of those things. So make sure you're not trying to be. So in closing, I just want to stress to y'all, never assume a contract is just like the previous one. Never assume that you know what it says. Always take time, look at it. You owe that to your client. They are giving you a lot of money to represent them, so represent them. And at the end of the day, if you have a question, ask. This is not something to figure out later. These are people's livelihoods. These are people's biggest investments. Please start acting like it. Guys, if you enjoy these kind of videos, I'd love a little bit of love from you, a little like, a little subscribe, a little something like that, so it makes me feel good for doing them. And if y'all do things that help catch red flags in your contracts, as always, shoot me the DMs. I love them. I want feedback. I also want to know what you're doing. It makes us all better together.